moving on to the bad. And look, we're going to start in Detroit. Obviously, the Packers took the Lions to the woodshed, took care of business, kind of returned the normalcy in that region. Sorry, Lions fans, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, for the Lions, they came out and they looked flat. They looked unprepared, and there wasn't a whole lot of aggressiveness on the Lions side of things. So I think the question has to be, was the Lions' success maybe more about Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn rather than Dan Campbell? Again, just asking a question. We're not going to have a full answer after week 1, but I do believe the Lions have to get things under control. They will be playing the Bears this weekend. I believe. Let me just make sure I have it. Yes. So they will be hosting the Bears. So maybe a get right game for them, but they will have to show up and be fully prepared in that one. Of course, obviously, maybe a bit of a revenge game I don't know if it's a revenge game for Ben Johnson. No one kicked him out of Detroit. He left willingly, but I'm sure he would love to go to Detroit and get his first win. Go against Detroit and get his first win that way. So onto the other side of bad things. I alluded to it a little bit earlier and I had to kind of pull myself back. But it's the Ravens' late game decision making, and not just on Sunday, but throughout the years. I mean, there's plenty of graphics out there on social media that'll show you screenshots of, Ravens with 10, 14-point leads in the fourth quarter. And, the caption says the Ravens lost all of these games. It is difficult because I know a lot of people, obviously, the Derrick Henry fumble was the big kind of turning point, I would say, in that game. But a lot of talk has been made about Jim Harbaugh not going for it on 4th and 2 late in that game, up by 2. And while I understand that argument, I do think context does need to be applied because, look, if they do not get those 2 yards, and I get it, they got Derrick Henry and they got Lamar Jackson. So you have to feel confident about them getting those 2 yards. But if you do not get those 2 yards, the Bills are essentially almost in field goal territory. I think it was around like the 40-yard line. So that would line up for about a 57-yarder. So not exactly a chip shot, but these days, Matt Prater, he can get it done, and he did. I personally believe that the Ravens did make the right decision punting, because, it's like, you know what? We haven't been able to stop Josh Allen, but you still got to go out there and try to make it happen. Because, again, if you don't pick up those 2 yards, they're getting ready to bring in the field goal unit pretty much right away. And they can win the game that way. And again, I get it. Oh, well, they ended up going down and getting it. Yes, hindsight is 2020. And we could always say, yeah, they should have gone for it, blah, blah, blah. But there is an alternate universe out there where we do not see this reaction because the Ravens go for it and then they don't get it. And then the reaction, unfortunately, is, oh, what is Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh doing? I can't believe he did this. So I think it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Josh Allen is just really, really good. And I think the Ravens defense understands that. And back to the drawing board for them. But the decision-making late in games, I do think does need to be addressed. No doubt about it. Now, finally, I got 3 uglies for you. Starting at home with me, with the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles did get the win. It was definitely a little tighter than anyone really expected, especially after the Micah Parsons trade and all that stuff. But the big thing that happened in this one was right after the kickoff. Jalen Carter spitting on Dak Prescott. Now, I know that, first of all, NBC having footage of Dak Prescott, spitting in his direction and sitting on that for 2.5 hours. It's kind of crazy to me. However, 2 things can be true at once. They should have shown that earlier than they did. But the other truth, no matter what Dak Prescott did, it didn't warrant getting spit on, or at least spitting in his direction does not mean you get to spit on that person. But I do think it added a little bit of context. Again, I do believe Jalen Carter should have been ejected. He was ejected. And it was a big loss for the Eagles. You saw it. The Cowboys went up and down on the Eagles defense, especially on the run game, and it really showed Jalen Carter how important he is to this team. I think it was a selfish, silly, stupid act. But look, Jalen Carter is still young, and I'm not going to, go down the road of, oh, well, what was he doing in college? Because the thing that probably made Jalen Carter drop all the way down to number 9 was a lot more serious than him spitting on somebody. So again, context matters. It was a stupid decision. He has been fined, I think, $57,000. And technically he was suspended 1 game, but the NFL decided that him being out of week 1 was when he served it. So we will see Jalen Carter against the Chiefs on Sunday, assuming all bodily fluids stay in the body. But two more others, or uglies, I should say. And I alluded to this earlier, but the Miami Dolphins, what is going on? This was a franchise that just 2 or 3 years ago looked like they were on the ascendancy, and they looked like possibly they were going to be taking over kind of the AFC. I vividly remember them dropping, what was it, 70 or something on the Broncos, where they're just running all up and down the field with such speed, precision. And even last year, when Tua dealt with his concussion stuff, you could say, you know what, look, they don't have their starter in. You got to give them a break. Well, they don't have any excuses now. And they had actually, I'm not even going to say probably, they had the most pathetic performance of week 1. Excuse me. And I don't think it was particularly close either. So that is something that definitely needs to be addressed for the Dolphins. But I think the big question is can they get it addressed in season? Because again, I think Mike McDaniel is a player coach. Everything's great when you're winning, but the minute you start to lose, the kind of laissez-faire kind of persona that he wants to put out, I think it's starting to wear on people. So we'll see what's going on with the Dolphins going forward. And my final ugly of week 1, it was the last thing we saw from week 1. It was the second half performance from the Bears. What was that? Ben Johnson's first drive as a Bears coach, Caleb Williams, takes him down the field a bit, did a lot of it through his legs, which is fine, but he didn't make major strides in the passing game in that first drive. But at the same time, it is something that needs to be asked. Is Caleb Williams the answer in Chicago? And I don't know if we'll have the answer soon. But Ben Johnson has his work cut out for him. I don't know what the second half game plan was, but he was outcoached. The Bears were outplayed in every facet of the game in that second half, and you got to give JJ McCarthy his flowers. He was overwhelmed for 3 quarters. Myself and Raider Jim were exchanging text, and for 3 quarters it was, I think this kid might be a little bit, over his skis, or he's in the deep end, and I don't think he knows how to swim. Well, Kevin O'Connell was able to teach him very quickly, if that was the case, because JJ McCarthy had an incredible fourth quarter, and he's already 1 for 1 when it comes to fourth quarter game-winning drives. JJ McCarthy getting the job done. Kevin O'Connell, for me, I still will say, maybe give Pete Carroll a little bit of the nod because of the experience, but I have no problem saying Kevin O'Connell, for me, is the number 2 coach behind Andy Reid in this league. He is a fantastic coach, and it seems like whatever comes his way, he has an answer for it. We'll see how JJ McCarthy and the Bears continue on through the season, I should say. But with that being said, time to dive into the game previews for the week. We were gonna start in the AFC West. Obviously, I was teeing this one up for Mr. Martinez, Raider Jim, but of course, doesn't look like he's going to be joining us today. So He's going to be stuck with me talking Raider football. This is the only time you will, that anyone else will get first word over Raider Jim when it comes to the Raiders. But obviously, when it comes to the Chargers and Raiders, it's the game that will be played on Monday night. This will be the second of two games. We got a Monday night doubleheader. Tampa Bay and Houston, which I will talk about momentarily, will be your first game. Chargers Raiders will be game number 2. They will be staggered. So this game will be going off at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. But the line as it sits now, of course, I am recording on Thursday. So lines may move by Sunday. Keep an eye open for that. The Chargers are 3-point favorites going on the road. The over-under is going to be 46.5, with the Chargers sitting at minus 180 on the money line, and the Raiders sit at plus 155. I made money with the Raiders last week, kind of went against my rule of not betting week 1. Felt like I had a good idea. And at least in this game, or at least in the Raiders-Patriot game, I had a pretty good idea. The Chargers side of things, I expected them to cover. I did not expect them to win outright against Kansas City, but I was very, very impressed with what the Chargers were able to do. They were in control for most of that game. There was a little hiccup towards the end. Omario Hampton, towards the end of the first half, running out of bounds. Big mistake, but I do want to give, you know what I was going to say? No, it is Harrison Butker. I want to give Harrison Butker and the Chiefs special teams a little bit of a shout out. That last second fire drill on the field goal to hit a 59-yarder. Wow, tip of the cap to that group. Wasn't enough, but again, for the Chargers, outside of that little 5-minute little in real time of, is this a Charger collapse incoming? They were able to grab a hold of the reins, keep things on track, get the win. Look, anytime I see a line of -3, I'm buying a half a point. It's just a question of which way am I going, and I'm going to buy a half a point here and give me the Raiders plus 3.5. I think this is a field goal game. I would not be terribly surprised to see the Raiders get the win. I think the Raiders defense looked very good, and the Raiders have wasted no time, I should say, in immediately getting Brock Bowers involved. He had a great game. Even Michael Mayer looked pretty darn good as well. And I'm interested to see how the Raiders continue to go with Geno and with Pete Carroll. Give me the Raiders plus 3.5. I like this to be a field goal game, and that means I'm a winner regardless. In terms of the over-under, I do like the under here. I think you got two offenses that maybe might not be opening up the playbook, and two defenses that I think are that were really good week 1. Or maybe not really good, but they were good enough. Mainly the Raiders. The Raiders had some moments. Even the Chargers, maybe late in that game, Mahomes' magic almost came out. But overall, I think both of these fan bases have to be feeling good heading into this. Someone's going to feel amazing when this is all said and done. But give me the Raiders plus 3.5. You are going to have to buy a half a point more than likely on that one. And the under 46.5.